Okay, editor Juan. So, unfortunately, that clip is corrupted. So there's just the audio cuts out, and then the contrast goes massively on it. So it's not really great. So in that first Monday morning clip, I talked about watching Jack's vlog. It being quite long, which is why this update was quite late. It was a really great video. If you haven't watched, go check that. And then I went and talked about what my plan was for the day. So I went and looked at some data analysis on another recent post for Duke Street. One of the shop owners put a post up about how footfall's basically completely dead in that area of the street. So I compiled all that into a document similar to what I did with my first 17 units video, and I was going to send that through to the same group of people I did before, so councillors, MHKs, and Douglas City Centre Management. Now, I actually didn't send that through because once I'd compiled it, I then went to the business forum, as you'll see very soon. But I spoke with Devon there, so I didn't need to email it through. I was able to catch up with him and talk through it. So yeah, something to hold on to. Just adds a bit of data to the process. But yeah, I then didn't email it through. So, but then I also then went on a bit of a waffle. It was like a 5-minute update, talking about my hesitation about the business forum and maybe the alternative reasons behind the meeting and the guy that was hosting it or chairing it, as you'll see in my in my update after the event. So I think that pretty much wraps up what I was saying in that Monday morning update. Hopefully much shorter, much more concise. But yeah, cool. Right, back to it. Okay, I'm gonna head out to this business forum. I will let you know my thoughts. Yeah, we'll see what it's like. Hopefully there's some worker representation. We'll see, right? Okay, this section is going to be on my thoughts of last night's meeting, the local economy forum. Hopefully it won't get too political, but feel free to skip ahead to this timestamp if you don't want to hear it, and you can just pick up once I've done with whatever this is. Cool. Okay, so it was a bit of a long event. The main presentation didn't take up much time at all. It was only, I think, 11 slides, including the title and summary slides. So it's like 9 slides of info. It's not incredibly in depth. I felt like it outlined their proposal quite well, though. Whether or not it is the right proposal and whether or not the figures match up is a separate conversation. So first of all, my thoughts. Chris Robertshaw, who was the chair of the meeting, I felt like if he wasn't there, it would have gone better. Whenever he was speaking, and he spoke for probably about 15 minutes at the start, and then over again, just in between when he was answering questions, for probably another 10-15 minutes or so. So 25-30 minutes of him just talking about this new political action group. So he was turning it into a political campaign meeting rather than being what it was of a small business forum for people to kind of question the current minimum wage proposal and then question their proposal as well. I will say, I don't think many people did question it. I think a lot of people, when they did a vote in the room, just voted for it blanket, without actually looking at the figures behind the proposal. But yes, so I say, Chris, if he hadn't spoken too much about his political party, then I think it would have been much better. Brett Martin, when he spoke on, he is chief executive of Palace. So I think if he had just done the presentation as a whole, I think Brett's presentation was really well. I say it outlined the proposal that they were suggesting quite well, but yeah, I think Chris turned it quite political, and I felt like he was just trying to gain political points from it rather than actually empathizing with the business community, although that's obviously what most people will take from it. I don't feel like that's what his core mission was. It will be interesting to see what Tim takes from it. I think I counted 5. I believe Rob Carlson said there was 6 MHKs at the meeting, so a higher turnout than I expected. It will be interesting to see how they take that forward. My answer is, as long as it improves the cost of living for working people, as long as working people get paid more, then I'm all for it. I said before, I was disappointed when Tynwald did approve the current minimum wage increase that's coming into force at Q2 next year. I was disappointed that wasn't already at a living wage. I am also disappointed that it still separates a standard minimum wage and then a young person's minimum wage. As someone who worked from quite young in their life, I think the idea that young people's time is worth less is a outdated belief. And there was some comments last night that clearly show that mindset of where the business community is in relation to younger people. I think what I was most disappointed about is the kind of blame game that they are playing, both the business community and the business community in this forum and the MHKs that are currently in office. I think what's important is this discussion has been ongoing for, I'd hope for years, of an increase to minimum wage. Rob Callister mentioned that it was in his election manifesto. So go back to the start of this term. It is clear that this discussion would have been ongoing for the entirety of their term. To say then that you only agreed because it was the only option available, or that it was a rushed discussion, was, I feel like, just not good enough for people making these decisions. Now, I suppose I will say just my final thoughts, because this is probably much longer than I should. Actually, let me just one more. There was a comment about getting charged national insurance, basically tax on dividends, and there was clearly a portion of the people in attendance that were using that to avoid paying national insurance. So a simple one for that is everyone should be paying and contributing towards national insurance. That's how we pay our pensions. That's our social security net. So then, yes. So my final thoughts, going back to the discussion around it being the only option. This proposal was put together. I spoke to Brett afterwards. He said although he had some figures before Tynwald sat to approve the minimum wage, this proposal was actually put together after the vote had been passed. So a kind of really simple message. It's really disappointing that this forum wasn't active in giving alternatives. Yes, you can blame the MHKs and sitting members for not going out and speaking, but at the end of the day, if you've got a proposal, you should be coming forward before the vote, rather than coming forward after and then blaming the MHKs for voting on a proposal that they had in front of them. Now, yes, there is a budget coming up next year, which we'll see how this will be calculated, and to see how that balances out. Ultimately, business are struggling now, so this minimum wage increase, whilst it might have a effect, it's not going to be a drastic effect on the business landscape, because again, businesses are struggling already. It is ludicrous to assume that this decision has made it any worse between now and when the minimum wage increase comes into effect. Again, you look at all the businesses that have closed this year, and that's without an increase to minimum wage. So clearly there are root causes to the problems, and it is not just that people are having to pay a living wage. I would actually argue that because businesses are not paying a living wage is exactly why the businesses are closing, because people just do not have that excess money to spend. I've had numerous reports now around from both videos I'd produced and other videos bringing together community feedback, and it is clear that the most common reason for people feeling either guilty or not being able to support local is because they simply cannot afford to, and that's clearly a root issue that needs to be resolved, which the minimum wage was seeking to address, because once that economy grows, then the whole island can thrive again. It's really simple. It's quite right that some businesses are struggling, and this will make it difficult. Again, we've come through the pandemic where footfall was zero, so obviously you had a lot of businesses where then they had no revenue or minimal revenue. You then come through to the energy crisis with Russia's illegal invasion of Ukraine, putting up the gas prices, so clearly that has affected a large portion of the cost of the living wage, and then obviously the cost of living crisis that has come from that. So there's 3 consecutive issues that have kind of made it worse and worse for small business owners. But I will say again, this issue goes further back than the pandemic. Strand Street has had empty units that are empty than longer than this issue has been going around. So clearly there is root causes, which is the fact that a working population can simply just not afford to live here on the island, which is just unacceptable. So hopefully things will get better, and the root causes is again the utility companies charging exorbitant rates, the rents being extremely high through private rental. Private rental clearly needs some work. There are issues that need resolving there. So fixing both utilities, rental, and then a fair wage are key to ensuring that the economy can grow, because ultimately it puts more money back in people's pockets, which they can then spend on the island. Right, that's this section done. If you watched, thank you very much. If you didn't, I hope you enjoyed skipping ahead. Okay, another update from editor Juan. So I just realised I hadn't done a clip in between what you've just watched, my thoughts on the local forum, and then the next day when I had a fairly long clip, so it was about 45 minutes in total. I had 2 cameras running for a meeting I had with a couple of chaps that were working on a kind of app website that will hopefully improve access for, as they put it, government, businesses, tourists and local residents. So yeah, I'm probably going to time-lapse most of it, and then maybe slow it down for some key talking bits. But yeah, that's what you're about to watch. Enjoy.
Clearly have your finger on the pulse when it comes to local businesses on the Isle of Man. So kudos to you, man, because I think the content that you produce is, it's insightful, but also, you clearly resonate with the community and the local businesses. And, I just thought it'd be amazing to kind of get your insights on the Isle of Man.
something that can be fixed. We can come out of it. And I think it's just making sure that the businesses have the support of government and, more importantly, the support of other businesses. I think that's the main thing that really surprised me when I first started, is that small business owners specifically don't feel like they're supported as a community.
Yeah.
They're very much left to build in isolation. The analogy that keeps coming back is crabs in a bucket. People, specifically on the island, if someone succeeds, there's a lot of people grabbing to bring you back down again.
Okay, gotcha.
Which, from my point of view, I suppose I was maybe naive to it, but I always assumed we have this big community mindset of we'll support whoever and push people up. But clearly business owners don't feel that.
Businesses are hurting, and some of it is self-inflicted, some of it is just the nature of the environment, some of it is sort of the weight of government or the decision-making of government. So yes, I think that we can help businesses modernize on that front.
Okay, so final update from editor Juan. So it was a few just quick clips from that meeting. It was good. They're going to keep me in the loop with what they're working on, hopefully for the new year. Hopefully it'll be a good collection of information that will help everyone. I'm optimistic. We shall see. The next clip is obviously the video I recorded this morning. It was very, very, very cold. But yeah, that's the end of this video. So I'm gonna finish here and then I'll put the video at the end. I looped it on all the socials, so the ending and the start looped together. It wasn't the original plan, but it was very chilly. So when I got down to the strand, it started raining and I was getting very cold. My fingers were feeling like they were gonna fall off. So I quickly pivoted to a looped video, so I didn't have to film in another location. But yeah, enjoy. I hope you enjoyed the whole of this video. Slightly longer one, quite an interesting week, but yeah, I can't promise next week will be as interesting, but we shall see. So enjoy, thanks for watching, ciao for now.
Let's be honest, the signs are everywhere, and have been for a while. Empty units, for sale posts, businesses quietly closing down. It's not a coincidence, it's a warning. When local businesses disappear, it's not just another shop gone, it's wages gone, it's resilience gone, it's community gone, and it's decision making shifting further and further away from the island. And here's the part that no one likes to talk about. Most people want to support local, but too many simply can't afford to. That's the real problem. Not laziness, not lack of loyalty. Just everyday people being squeezed so tight that the cheapest option becomes the only option. But local businesses are still fighting. New ones are opening. People are out there trying, risking savings, time, sleep to keep our island's economy alive. They're not asking for charity, they're just asking for a chance. So if we want a thriving island, we can't just say support local. We need to build a system where supporting local is possible, because